Welcome back, everybody. It's the Fantasy Football Strategist here. In today's video, we're going to go round by round throughout the first 6 rounds of ADP in Dynasty startups and talk about one player from each round that I think is the best value within the round itself. Now, you may agree or disagree. Let me know below in the comment section what you're thinking, but I'm going to try to substantiate my reasoning for which I think these players are the best values at their ADP. So let's get into it. And so taking a look at round one, it is a little bit difficult to find somebody that's a tremendous value because these are the first 12 players selected, right? But somebody that I think I didn't choose that could potentially be the best value is somebody like Justin Jefferson. Now, I know that Jamar Chase is coming off a Triple Crown season. I think he's obviously an elite wide receiver one. I think he has the most upside of any wide receiver. But then, Justin Jefferson, he was most people's wide receiver one for a couple seasons, and somebody else to remember is CeeDee Lamb, right? With Jamar Chase, I think it is unlikely that he's going to repeat. That typically does not happen as the wide receiver one overall. Antonio Brown is one of the rare exceptions there. Remember with CeeDee Lamb, for instance, after that 400 plus fantasy point season this past year in 2023, some people were saying, why is he not the wide receiver one? What are we doing here? Well, you saw this past season, he missed some time with injury, that AC sprain. And then, he just wasn't quite there, but he was still an elite wide receiver one. But then now he's lost some value, right? And now he's not considered the wide receiver one anymore. That is very fluid. I think that Justin Jefferson has the potential to be one of the longer upside wide receivers at an elite level because he doesn't win with sheer athleticism. He wins with technique and perfection. Somebody else that I think is a potential good value is Malik Nabers. So Malik Nabers is going off the board 12th overall, which is the last pick in the first round. And now, why do I think Malik Nabers is the best value? Well, I think he is probably a top 3 talent in terms of just pure talent at wide receiver. You may disagree. In terms of his dominator rating, that is his market share of the team yards and touchdowns. He's 46.6% is first among wide receivers. That's almost 50% of the passing yards and the passing touchdowns. Think about that. That is so ridiculous. His juke rate of 12.3% was 8th in the NFL. That's his ability to force missed tackles after the catch. He is incredible after the catch. His offensive grade of 86.7 was 8th among 133 wide receivers per PFF, and specifically his receiving grade of 87.1 was 9th among 125 receivers. He was dealing with some injuries, but toughed through it. And now his open score. His 91 open score, which was actually a 99 through the majority of the season, was first among wide receivers. That's his ability to separate and get open. He was statistically the best wide receiver at getting open per ESPN analytics. I completely agree, and it's incredible to see. Now, taking a look at his targets. Keep in mind, he missed 2 games due to a concussion, right? His 170 targets were second in the NFL despite missing 2 games. So that means that he probably was going to have about 190 something targets, almost 200. That's an elite target share. His 34.9% actually was first in the NFL. That is by a good margin. Typically, you won't see above 32 generally, but that's how good he is and how much better he is than the players around him. And then his target rate of 31.2% is second among wide receivers. This guy earns targets at an elite rate. He's explosive. He's great after the catch, and he is a huge part of his team's offense. Now, you might say, well, then why didn't he finish higher than the wide receiver 6 this past season, right? Well, first of all, he missed 2 games due to injury, but then he also had below 32nd best quarterback play, right? So then what changed? Well, they signed Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. Now, if he gets to play with Jameis Winston, I think he is the wide receiver 1 in fantasy and by a good margin. Jameis Winston has no fear of any form at all. He will throw to his guy whether he's open or not. Malik Nabers will get open, though. He can hit you all over the field. And once again, he's just going to put up a ton of volume. That would be fantastic for Malik Nabers. But even Russell Wilson is an upgrade. Now, while Russell Wilson doesn't like to throw over the middle of the field, right? He's a little bit shorter. I believe he's 5'11". He still has a beautiful deep ball. And if you look at any Malik Nabers highlights from this past season, let alone the film, you'll notice that on those slot fades and those vertical routes down the field, he was accelerating right by the cornerbacks, right? But then every pass he would get would be 20 yards short. He'd have to cut back behind the corner, come up to the football, and then not score a touchdown because the guys just could not hit him in stride. It was so frustrating. This guy got tackled on the 1 yard line. I believe it was 4 or 5 times last season. It was so frustrating. Well, Russell Wilson has one of the best moonballs in the NFL. He is going to be able to hit him vertically deep down the field. I would prefer Jameis Winston, but listen, both of these guys are substantial upgrades to anything he had throughout the entirety of his rookie season. And he's still by far and away the wide receiver one. It's not even close. I think, and he put up over 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns with worse than 32nd best quarterback play. A wide receiver 6 overall finish. He's going to finish higher than that this season. I think Malik Nabers is a fantastic value at pick 12 in your startups. And before I move on to the second round, another thing I wanted to mention with Nabers is he's not even 22 years old. He's still 21. He was 20 when he was drafted. So you're getting a player that has this elite upside and is already produced in the worst situation imaginable, and he's really young. So then moving on to round 2, a couple players that I didn't select that I think potentially could be really good values are CeeDee Lamb, who's being picked at the 201. Remember, he's 1 year removed from being a decent amount of people's wide receiver 1 overall. The situation's really the same. He just had, a little bit of an injury concern with that AC joint, and then Dak got hurt as well. But CeeDee Lamb could potentially be the wide receiver 1 overall again. Somebody else like Trey McBride. I know Brock Bowers is going, I believe, 8th overall in the first round. Well, you're getting somebody that's, 4 years older in Trey McBride, sure, but somebody that put up essentially the same numbers with less touchdowns. He's due for some positive touchdown regression. I think he's going to be elite. And then, if you take somebody like Trey, if you want that elite difference-making tight end that isn't, old like George Kittle, you can just get Trey McBride in the second round potentially, and then get somebody else in the first round too. I personally would much rather have Trey McBride than Brock Bowers at their current ADP. Another player, or multiple players, potentially are Caleb Williams and Drake May. With Caleb Williams, say what you want about him, but he had a pretty decent rookie season. He led his team back to multiple game-winning or tying drives. He didn't fail one single time. He had absolute coaching dysfunction. He had a terrible offensive line. And then he also had his own issues where he was taking needless sacks. Now he has Ben Johnson, I think, and they beefed up the offensive line. I think they're going to have a good running game. He's going to rebuild the offense around Caleb Williams' strengths. Somebody like Drake May, he was in an even worse situation. His offensive line was worse than 32nd best in the NFL. That's right. There were backup offensive lines that graded out higher than his starting offensive line. His weapons in the passing game, he had Hunter Henry, Kayshon Boutte, Pop Douglas. So for him to have performed even middlingly is impressive, and I think he has a ton of upside. I think he has relatively similar to Josh Allen potential upside. Will he ever reach that upside? It remains to be seen, but I also think he could be a good value. But I went with Brian Thomas Jr. here, who is going at the 204 or the 16th overall pick. And so with Brian Thomas Jr., his dominator rating, his market share of the team's total receiving yards and receiving touchdowns of 43.6 was second in the NFL behind who? Only Malik Nabers, which is remarkable because, in the first half of the season, he was not receiving nearly the amount of volume that he should have been. His juke rate of 10.8% is 10th in the NFL. That's his ability to force missed tackles after the catch. Tremendous. His explosive play rating of 121.3 is 8th in the NFL. That is receiving gains of 20 plus yards. Remarkable. His 562 yards after the catch were good for 4th in the NFL. Now, his 822 unrealized air yards was 6th in the NFL as well. So think about his 1,200 yard, 10 touchdown season. Think about how much better it could have been. It could have been a 2,000 yard, 10 touchdown plus season, depending on how many of these unrealized air yards would have gone for touchdowns, right? His total route wins of 216 were good for 10th in the NFL. And his route win rate of 48% overall between man and zone coverage was good for 24th. That's very good, especially for somebody that was a raw prospect that was, according to some people, just an MVS clone. I could not have disagreed more. Now, another thing, Duval. If you take a look at the quote from new head coach Liam Cohen, who has made Players such as Baker Mayfield have career seasons and even got Will Levis drafted. I don't know how he did that. He has succeeded everywhere he's gone, be it at the Rams too, besides the Buccaneers, and at the University of Kentucky. So, a quote from him: the ability for him to snap down, get in the slot, be able to run some of the choice routes, looky routes, and then, oh, by the way, you can throw him a screen and he can go do something with it. Our passing game will run through him, and super excited to get to work with him. Liam Cohen knows how to use players to their strengths. He's going to. He's working on Trevor Lawrence with his footwork issues. Man, I think that essentially the entirety of the Jaguars' passing attack is a substantial buy candidate. I want all the Trevor Lawrence, all the Brian Thomas, even some Brenton Strange if I can get him cheap enough. I think that this passing offense is going to soar this season. And I want to give a special shout out to my Patreon members. Thank you to Big Hunt, SP, Mage Shack, and Infamy MTG. If you would like to become a Patreon member, the link's going to be below in the comment section. There we're going to have weekly live streams where we go over, fantasy news, potential buy low candidates, sell high candidates, depending on the news. We're going to give you specific league-oriented roster construction with trade advice based on your specific league settings there. We're going to give you access to early videos. We're going to give you the ability to suggest videos as well. I made a private video for someone on Isaac Rendo, some of the pluses, minuses to his game, things to like, and specific price points to sell or buy for. You're also going to find that we are working on a model with predictive capability for running backs, quarterbacks, tight ends, and wide receivers based on a variety of specific metrics, minimums and maximums to be in an acceptable range for us in fantasy that will be predictive and lead us to being able to be more successful, we think, than the average person in determining which prospects based on these thresholds are likely to hit or unlikely to hit. And we're also going to be updating that each and every single year with the new prospects so that we can continuously have the best model possible. So once again, if you'd like to become a member, the link's going to be below in the comment section. Thanks. And so taking a look at round 3, I chose JSN for, in my opinion, the best value. Some other players you could potentially consider here. Garrett Wilson. Justin Fields was able to have DJ Moore produce a remarkable 1,300 plus yard season with the Bears. I think that, he's also worked with Garrett Wilson in the past. I think there's the potential for a connection there and for him to outproduce his ADP. Somebody like Bo Nix was the QB7 overall as a rookie. They're bound to get him some better people to pass the ball to, right? He has the best passing offensive line in terms of the protection they provide him in the NFL. And he has Sean Payton. I think he's a fantastic candidate at his ADP. But I went with JSN here. And so with JSN, his target separation of 1.85 yards was good for 17th in the NFL. He's a good separator. Oh, he's also good after the catch. His juke rate of 14.3% was 7th in the NFL. Once again, that's his ability to force missed tackles after the catch. Well, he also received a massive upgrade in terms of the offensive coordinator position. He has Clint Kubiak. He is going to use JSN on the outside with the departure of DK Metcalf deep down the field. I think he is going to be their X wide receiver, but I also think he's going to be put in the Z in the slot as well. He has absolute positional versatility. I think that he's best in the slot, but when he has been used out wide, he has been successful. Now, this point from Fantasy Points data on X said that JSN was elite on all deep routes last year. He just wasn't asked to do them very often. And then also another point he made is Sam Darnold led the league in deep passing yards this past season, and Clint Kubiak's system is built around the running game and the deep ball. I think we are going to get a bunch of massive plays from JSN, but I also think he's still going to remove the chains for us, which is fantastic for a PPR setting. Now, taking a look at some stats here, his 248 total route wins were good for second. His route win rate overall of 45.9% was good for 36th. That's solid as well. His win rate versus man of 36.8% was good for 24th as well. And his target rate versus man from this past season of 31% was good for 10th. This guy is built to be a volume monster. I think he has the similar upside to that of somebody such as Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think they're relatively similar players, except I think that JSN is just better after the catch. Now, in terms of round 4, who potentially could be some of the best values, I think that somebody like Brock Purdy, for instance, is a decent value in his own right. I don't know that Baker is per se. I think he's potentially a sell-high candidate, although he's very talented. I think he's going to be great for us in fantasy. I think Roma Dunze potentially could be a good value. depending on where he's going to be positioned in the offense of Ben Johnson. Also, assuming that it's going to be anything like what we saw in Detroit, we don't know that. He said he's going to tear it down to the roots and build it around Caleb Williams and his strengths. But I went with Trevor Lawrence here, and you may disagree with this, but here's why. Now, when you take a look at Trevor Lawrence, I mentioned in another video with the potential worst values at their current startup ADPs that Jordan Love has similar rushing upside to Trevor Lawrence. Well, when we think about once again with Trevor Lawrence, he has not had the offensive mind that Jordan Love has. Until this past season, he hasn't even had a wide receiver to throw to besides Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram, which are fine, but not really that guy. Well, he finally has Brian Thomas Jr., but he's also, obviously, in his rookie season, he was terrible in real life and for fantasy. Urban Meyer was a complete disaster. He had no talent around him. You had to feel bad for the guy, and he was not able to overcome the situation. Then in his second season with the arrival of Doug Peterson, he was the 8th best quarterback. You saw that he had almost 300 rushing yards again with 5 touchdowns. You'll notice rushing upside in terms of the touchdown specifically is a consistent theme, and he generally has that around 300 yards per season on the ground. Then he took a step back in 2023, but was still, the highest QB2 imaginable, being the 13th overall quarterback. Now, 2024 did not go to plan. He was very poor as well, but the offensive environment was terrible. Press Taylor was a horrible offensive coordinator, not creative in any way, shape, or form. Well, now he gets Liam Cohen. Liam Cohen said, "We're diving into his footwork. Everything with the quarterback position, so much is built into the lower half and the mind. And those are the things that we can truly control. Because of the stroke is the stroke for us, that's how we look at it. The stroke is the stroke. We're not going to touch that in terms of his mechanics throwing the ball. But really, we're diving into his footwork and some of those mechanics. So what he's going to do is look to marry Lawrence's feet with his progressions. That should improve his accuracy and his timing and rhythm and help him get through his progressions in the offense. And what Liam Cohen got Will Levis drafted. He was behind Baker Mayfield's QB4 finish this past season. He can do wonders with anyone he touches, and he is going to be working with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence will finally have an offensive-minded head coach and talent around him. They're obviously going to add around him in the draft, but he has his dominant wide receiver one already in Brian Thomas. Now, taking a look at some of the things that I like from the system in terms of his fit into the system, Trevor Lawrence's deep ball accuracy rating of 5.8 was good for 7th among quarterbacks. He throws a beautiful deep ball. His deep ball catchable pass rate of 55.8% was good for 2nd, and his pressured catchable pass rate of 56.1 was good for 13th. That is slightly above average as well. I think that he is a good scheme fit for the system, and I think that Liam Cohen is going to help Trevor Lawrence with his footwork, help him get back in rhythm, be more accurate, progress through his reads, and stay on time. And I think that this entire Jaguars passing game is going to be electric this season. And so taking a look at round 5 here, another player that I think potentially could be a good value where they're going is Trevion Henderson, the running back. He's going at the 508, but I think that Omarion Hampton potentially is a better value at the 503. And the reason for this is I think there's a chance that he's a first-round pick, and if he does get that draft capital, I think he should be being drafted much higher than he's currently going in drafts. And so getting into some stats here, his 40-yard dash was in the 86th percentile. His speed score of 111.7 was in the 93rd percentile. And his burst score of 129.6 was in the 92nd percentile. A speed score of a little bit over 101 is necessary in general. There is positive correlation between hitting at the running back position, especially these upside plays, or missing. If you are below 101, there is around a 72 to 73% drop-off rate in terms of hit rate among running backs. So he hits all of the markers that we want there. Now, in terms of his PFF grades, his offensive grade of 88.4 was 21st among 444 running backs, and his rush grade of 90.5 was 16th among 314. But he's also a decent receiving back with the upside to expand his route tree due to his lateral agility. Now, another thing, Omarion Hampton, in terms of his RAS, his relative athletic score, his 9.70 out of a possible 10 was 64th out of 2,099 total running backs from 1987 to 2025. When you take a look at his production, you see gradual growth every single year. You go from 414 to 1504 to 1660 rushing yards, 7 to 16 to 17 rushing touchdowns, 6 to 29 to 38 receptions, 40 to 222 to 373 receiving yards, and his target share 1.2 to 7 to 11.3%. This is the progressive growth that we really want in the production profile of our prospects. If he gets first round draft capital, or even if he gets second round, but he goes to a fantastic spot, this guy is going to smash for us in fantasy. And taking a look at round 6, a couple players that I think potentially could be the guy that you want in this round and are good values. Zay Flowers, I think he's still just going to be a wide receiver too, but there is the opportunity for a third-year breakout. He's been a solid player with a decent ceiling, a little bit of a lower floor than we would like, though. Another player that is being drafted at the very end of this round is Luther Burden III. This guy has everything you want in terms of somebody that can hit at the NFL level and be a dynamic fantasy asset. He has the positional versatility to be used on the outside and the inside. He's dominant from the slot. You want to get this guy manufactured touches, but you don't have to. He can take the top off of defense as well. And he is lethal after the catch. This guy is ridiculous after the catch with both physicality and elusiveness. This guy, I think, is going to be a stud at the NFL level and for us in fantasy. But I went with DJ Moore here because while he is a little bit older for sure than Luther Burden, I have a reason why I think he is going to dominate for us this season and potentially for a couple more. And that reason is Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson is an elite offensive mind and an elite play caller. Everything you want. Now, another thing that I really like is he's not one of these pushovers that just is too afraid to speak his mind or take control of the situation. He demands the best from his players. But not only that, he also puts his players in positions to succeed based on their skills, what they're good at doing. So, one excerpt is, Moore's expected to be a fixture in Johnson's reimagined offense after leading the Bears in receiving yards in each of the past 2 seasons. Despite the team's offensive struggles, he finished with a career 98 receptions this past year. To thrive in his system, though, strong blocking will be essential. Not that Moore has struggled to be a willing, effective blocker in the past. According to PFF, Moore earned the 9th best run blocking grade among all wide receivers who played at least 200 blocking snaps. And I think that he is going to be used in the slot and out wide, but more so in the slot. And now, we don't know that the offense is going to be a one-for-one relative carbon copy of the Detroit one. I don't think it's going to be because, like he said, he's going to build it around Caleb Williams' strengths, which is moving around, getting outside, being creative, extending the play, finding things when there's just nothing there. For all of the faults that Caleb Williams has had in terms of just, being a little bit indecisive, taking needless sacks, if you're being honest, Caleb Williams made some throws that you've probably hardly ever seen anyone make before. These jump man throws on the run, 40 yards down the field with pinpoint accuracy, throwing across his body. He's capable of making some of the most insane throws in the NFL, and in my opinion, is the best throwing on the run quarterback that there is, despite his other deficiencies. Ben Johnson is going to not only work it around his strengths, but he's also going to get an effective run game going. He's already improved the offensive line, getting Drew Dahlman from the Falcons, getting Tooney and Jackson for the guard positions. This offensive line is not going to be remarkably bad. It's going to be remarkably good. Now, another thing, DJ Moore is really good at yards after the catch. His 588 from this past season were good for 3rd in the NFL. His juke rate of 17.0% was 4th. That's his ability, once again, to force missed tackles. And his target separation of 2.18 was good for 5th. Now, he was running a good amount of drag routes and these routes that aren't necessarily the most technical routes because he's just such a good athlete that you can use him more like a Debo. I think he is going to put him in a prime position to get yards after catch, and I think he is going to be a dominant force for us in fantasy. And so to review, players that I think within each of the first 6 rounds are the best value at their current ADP. In the first round, we have Malik Neighbors. Remember, he has the highest dominator rating, his team market share of the team's receiving yards and receiving touchdowns of any wide receiver in the NFL by a large margin, I might add. His separation score, his open score from ESPN Analytics of 91 was the first among all wide receivers, but he was also a 99 throughout most of the season. He's getting 2 quarterback upgrades. He was already elite. He's not even 22 yet. He is going to be dominant. In round 2, we have Brian Thomas Jr. He gets a coaching upgrade to Liam Cohen, who is going to help out Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas. He's going to use him masterfully. He has every single year with all of his players. Now, another thing I didn't mention earlier with Brian Thomas Jr. is he is one of only 4 total wide receivers in the Super Bowl era to have a rookie season with at least 1,100 receiving yards and 10 receiving touchdowns. The other players, Randy Moss, OBJ, Jamar Chase. So players who have this type of rookie season have a 100% hit rate, right? Then we have JSN. He's getting the offensive coordinator upgrade from Grubb to Clint Kubiak. He's going to be used easily as the wide receiver 1. You can throw him at the X, the Z, or the slot. I think he's going to be used vertically as the X in the offense, but also going to be shifted into the slot. I think he's going to be used deep down the field. He's paired once again with Sam Darnold, who had the most deep yards. And then remember that Kubiak's system likes to run the ball and throw the ball deep. So I think JSN is going to eat. Trevor Lawrence at 4, much like with Brian Thomas, he's getting a massive coaching upgrade. Remember that he's already finished as the QB 8 and 13, despite having really subpar coaching and lack of talent around him, including almost, never an efficient running game. They really never have had one, right? So I think he's going to fix that for Trevor Lawrence, and I think we're going to see a resurgence up to, mid to low in QB1 status for him in terms of this season. And in the 5th round, we have Amari Hampton. Remember that there's a good chance he receives first-round draft capital. He's an elite athlete. Remember that running backs who have a 101 or less speed score have a 72 to 73% chance of a bust rate for us. He is going to have the profile we want and probably the draft capital to smash at the next level. And he's a decent receiver, but he has upside because of his lateral agility to become a more effective route runner, and he does have soft hands. And then at 6, we have DJ Moore from Chicago. I think there's a chance that he's going to be used in the slot, and that's where I think he's going to eat. Ben Johnson is going to reimagine this offense around Caleb Williams' strengths. I think he's going to feast in terms of Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze. I think everyone does, but I think DJ Moore is going to smash for us in fantasy because one thing, once again, Ben Johnson demands is the participation from his wide receivers in the run game. And DJ Moore was one of the best run blocking wide receivers graded per PFF this past season. And so where do you agree? Where do you disagree? Is there somebody that you think I should have put over one of these players in any individual round? If so, let me know below in the comment section. Feel free to check out my Patreon if you'd like to support the channel. I'd really appreciate it. And if anything, if you could please just like and subscribe. It's a free and easy way to support the channel, and I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.